Guys, welcome into 410 Sports Talk. Really excited about this opportunity. I'm James Haskell, my co-host.
Glenn Martin.
And, of course, we got Tavon Mason with us, who has been on our show before, previous to our move to YouTube. So, Tavon, thanks for coming on.
Oh, not a problem, fellas. It's great being back on with you guys and coming from the video side this end.
That's right. We're really excited to make the move. And for those that have been with us since the beginning, you'll know that Tavon is a local to Baltimore, but also a former player and brings a lot of good insight. Also the VP of the NFLPA in the Baltimore chapter. Mm-hmm. And so today what we want to do is we want to talk about we've had a couple guests on that have talked about the Ravens, off-season moves, what their plans are. Mm-hmm. But specifically we want to talk about the CBA because that's a hot topic right now. So we're going to do two parts to this. So we'll start off talking about the Ravens in particular. Okay. But so give us your insight. So we want to settle a bet here. We've been asking a couple people, and Glenn got to present the argument last time, so I'm going to present the argument this time.
Hey, what are you saying? I swayed the man? Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So when it comes to the draft specifically, mm-hmm. Glenn and I have two different schools of thought here. Not that I necessarily 100% disagree with him, but early in the draft, we're talking first round. Glenn is leaning towards more the inside linebacker role. Okay. Based on the fact that we have that tradition, and of course we had Mosley, and we really missed him. That's definitely apparent. However, I believe that I'm going to get a little more articulate than with Glenn's argument. I believe that and it buffers my argument based on the fact that a certain style, we run the ball a lot. Our interior offensive line is extremely important.
Right.
And I think that we saw that they were a little weak on the inside against Tennessee. And with Yonda retiring, I think that we should go out there and make sure we come away from this draft with either the best center or the best guard in this draft. Right. Even if we have to, swing early and go in the first round. So want to know if you agree with one of us or you see us going a different way.
It's funny because I actually agree with both of you guys. One thing I don't want us to do is definitely don't want no more tight ends.
Absolutely.
Tight ends. I was not mad, but I was kind of bothered in the last draft when we selected two tight ends in that draft, one being in the first round and then one in the later rounds. Great finds, but I believe we could have used those picks for other things. I believe you can find some of those positions in free agency or even lower in the draft, whether tight ends, whether it's wide receivers, but it's very rare to find legit offensive linemen who can really do what we need, especially playing in the division we play in, where it's a knockout, drag-out type offense. And like you guys said, we run the ball downhill. That's what we've been built on since the Ravens came to Baltimore in 96 to pound. You just see the type of running backs we have. Also, the linebackers are going to be key. What happened with the Tennessee Titans game? When we come up against running backs like Henry or even the running backs in our own division again, of having those run stoppers. But then I also play devil's advocate with our D-line because we kind of struggle with the edge. If it wasn't for the rain being in our favor in that 49ers game, we might have been slashed up kind of like how we kind of got slashed up in the Browns game and in the Kansas City Chiefs game. So it's tough, being in that role with not having a number of picks that we can play with in the first round. But I think I will start with the O-line with losing Yonda, and also over the years having up and down issues with our offensive line and continue to have to play this musical chairs with our offensive line. And we always find solid linebackers because it's just that mentality that we have here with our linebacker core that when you come in, you got to be ready to play on this defense. I don't think they will pick guys who don't fit the mold of our linebacker core, but it's tough to find legit offensive linemen who are going to grind it out like a Yonda. I didn't even know until I watched one of the videos on Twitter that when a dude broke his leg, he actually walked off on his own. That's Kobe Bryant type stuff when he tore his Achilles. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Yonda's not a little dude, so to be able to do that on a broken leg, that's amazing to me.
Yeah. All right, Jimmy, you got this one. That's fine. That's fine. I say, all right, well, before we hit the draft, of course, we got free agency coming up. So we all know the Ravens, they like to fill as many holes as they can before the draft. That way they're not forced to take a position out of need and can take the best player available. So with free agency right around the corner, is there some player in particular or a position in particular you want to see them shore up before the draft?
I think more so position than players, because anything can happen on the offseason. We don't know what injuries a lot of the players in the that are free agents have sustained, and how would they be coming in to the season. So me personally, with being a receiver, I would like for us to get don't have to be an all-way dominant receiver, but we need somebody that can pair and kind of big. We had Boykin that was starting to turn, you know what I mean, but then it didn't go as well. You know what I mean? I believe Brown needs someone that can complement him on that edge. To be honest, you know, Brown's body type, unless something just hits on his offseason for him to be able to take punishment that will come in our division, you know, his frame to me is built for your West Coast offense, your Rams, your 49ers, your Falcons, you know, your Saints, those type of offenses, even the Patriots type offense. Again, for the type of play we play in our division, you need those rugged receivers like the Boldens, like the Smiths, you know, those guys that when they do go in, they get hit, they pop right back up, they give it back to you, let's get back on the line again. So I think a compliment for Brown, of course, O-line is always key, and our defensive line, we got to get back to where we can penetrate with the D-line. It was starting to go that way, but then when we went against some serious competition, being the Titans, it was tough. You know what I mean? We couldn't make those stops when needed sometimes. Again, the Browns, the Chiefs, the edge. We got to get, as I like to say when I coach, you know, those dogs on the front line, you know, that do that dirty work without always being complimented all the time. So we need to get back to that 2000, 99, 2000, 2001 type defensive line, and that will help free our linebackers up to be able to move and be very rangy.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Can't argue with that. I'd like to go back to 99, 2000 as well and have that defense. I tell you what, man. So the other thing we wanted to talk to you about was, of course, the CBA, which is a big sticking point right now. It seems to be that there's a lot of division among those players that are further along in their career and more fortunate as far as contracts go. And having to add that 17th game to the schedule, while it seems like a lot of the younger players that don't have the benefit of having that guaranteed money are wanting that bump in payroll, right? Which I get, man. $100,000, I'd be hard pressed to turn that away.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a couple details in there, but you know, of course, that's a big sticking point. So I'd like to know, how do you think the players are discussing this? What are these conversations like inside their locker rooms when they're talking about this, adding the 17th game? Take us inside a little bit based on your experience and your playing days. How are these conversations being had?
So, like you just said, I'm one of those guys that, cause I was a free agent, so I was low on a totem pole, so I didn't have nothing guaranteed. So I would be one of those guys that will want that extra $100,000 for the league minimum and a 17th game to add another paycheck, and possibly, you know, by adding 2 more teams to the playoff bracket, that can be another paycheck. So to me, I think it's a gift and a curse, because me, I think of it as if you add 2 more teams to the playoff picture, does it start to water it down for what we're seeing? You know, I know at the end of the day, everybody wants the money. There's always going to have to be a twist. You got to give to be able to get. So it's going to be either you say you want more money, so we got to add this extra game. We'll take 2 games off the preseason, but then I go back to what you guys said. So if you take 2 games off the preseason, for those guys that are free agent like I was, or those guys trying to make teams, I mean, they got 2 less games to try to prove themselves. Even though they extend the roster spots to 2 more people, still you got 2 less games that you get to prove yourself. So, and with, you know, time limits and restraints on the club to pick that roster immediately, you know, you're going to have guys that, you know, they might travel far to try out for this team, and they don't get that much playing time, and now they're trying to like bounce around the team. So again, like you said, it works better for the younger and more free agent guys. Yeah, the older guys probably think, well, that's more beat up on my body. But again, like you say, they have money stored away. When you got new guys coming in, that's trying to make that roster spot and trying to get that money to help themselves out. I think that goes back to where, they try to talk about if, sometimes if all the players get together and boycott when a lot of stuff's going on with the taking the knee and everything, a lot of the guys, it won't affect them because they have made millions and millions of dollars, but the young guys that it will affect the more younger guys, or not even the younger guys, the guys that don't have those incredible contracts. So, it's goods and pluses about it. But like you said, the higher end, they saying like, nah, I don't want to do this. But then the middle to lower tier guys are like, yeah, let's go ahead and do this because that 17 game add hundreds of $millions of revenue from TV time, and we can get more money in our pocket. We get another opportunity to make it to the playoffs to get more checks in. So now they got to decide, like, what is it going to be? You know what I mean? Then the majority of the players that are on the NFLPA staff are more so your older veteran-type players who already I banked $100 million contracts or $50 million contracts. So it's like, how do you meet in the middle to help the younger guys that are coming up? Or are they meeting in the middle to help those guys coming up? Or it's just, I'm going to be gone in like 2 seasons, so I don't care. I don't want to be beat up trying to leave the season. And I took notes down just to seeing some of the stuff about it. So it seemed like it will benefit the middle to lower tier, and it also will benefit the guys that retire because their pensions will be higher and they get the automatic benefits. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. I wonder if they're going to make that deadline that they're supposed to have all the votes in, and it's going to be interesting, especially like when we just said with what's going on now. Will that give them more time to decide now?
Yeah, and you mentioned how it's affecting a lot of the players. Yeah. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is how do you think it'll affect the game? Because one thing the vets have been claiming that they want is to minimize training camp practices even more, in particular padded practices.
Right.
And you also mentioned the reduction of preseason games. So how much is that going to hinder coaches being able to put a decent product and a good team on the field when you're reducing practice time and preseason games?
Oh, it's going to hinder it all away. And I know you guys already know with summer camp starting later. I looked today, they said, padded practices will move down from 28 to 16. That will help the body, but what it creates, and I know you guys probably saw it this season, that when you got guys that have pent up, frustration of not being able to hit anybody, they go out and they go balls to the wall and you don't know what's the outcome going to be. So again, you're thinking of that level. And of course, coaches can't do stuff full speed anymore. You know what I mean? It got to be thud, or it has to be basically like touch, or basically like fly through or wrap up and release. But we don't play the game with wrap up and release. So then do you spend more time on fundamentals as far as the tackling? I think it would hurt the offense a little bit more because they're not going to know until they get in the game or what they can do. Because in the practice, they be able to run that route and they know no impact's going to come. But in the game, it's not going to be played like that. The same way with the defense. The defense can go full speed to the ball because, of course, we teach defensive players full speed to the ball, all hats to the ball. But now it's like when you're going full speed to the ball, how are you going to come when you tackling? Are you going reckless or do everything go out the window? I got to make this tackle because this is like the only time I'm really getting a hit. So it's definitely going to jumble up the players and coaches in planning. It will give them more planning time. You have more film time, and you start wondering like, will that kind of like oversaturate the mind of just film. Kind
of overstudying, yeah.
And the coaches will love it because they get to break down more stuff, and will that open the doors for them to make more and more plays and a lot more walkthrough. So
yeah, one of the things that I think about, with the recent retirement of Marshall Yanda, and just watching his retirement speech and learning a little bit more about his career. He's a JUCO guy, goes to Iowa, ends up being a starter. He loses his job after injury while in his professional career. He's benched for 11 games. Now we're talking about him as a Hall of Famer,
right?
As a potential Hall of Famer. And I think that's a pretty decent bet. I think a lot of people believe he's eventually going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
But one of the things I worry about with these lowered practices and the lower amount of reps is less guys like that. Because if you can't rep things out, if you can't progress, you got to come out of college more of a finished product.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about that. Do you think that there will be a lowered amount, as just like that, of those guys that come out that are raw, that maybe won't have the opportunity to develop into something because they just don't have the time to at this point?
Yeah, and I think what it will boil down to is a lot of the players going to have to do a lot of the stuff on their own. So when they're out of practice, they're going to have to do some things on their own on the field, whether it's the fundamentals and the techniques, hitting the bags with your D lineman or your offensive lineman. Probably getting a player to simulate what you can go through. So they're going to have to do a lot more on their own rather than having a practice time. But they also said that they will bumping the practice down, padded practice down to 16. It also takes an hour off of practice. So normally where it'll be 3 hours, now they'll bump it down to 2 hours. So that's looking like high school or college. Because I think with college, there's a mandatory that you can have at the max like 2.5 hours of practice. So you're thinking about something that's professional bumping down to be on the same level as high school and college. And already in high school, you don't have that much time to squeeze everything in a 2.5 hour time limit. And that's high school. So you don't have that worry of school or anything like that. They're supposed to be professionals and men. So it's like, what do you do next? You up meeting time, or you going to have guys zoned in and focused in, because we just sitting there. You know what I'm saying? You just sitting there and you just, like we said again, Martin, of just staring. You know what I mean? It's like, coach, how many times do I keep going over it? Can we like simulate this? There's a question of, with a lot of these places having like indoor facilities, will they use the facility to close practices from media to where they might be able to do other stuff that they don't want seen by cameras or by the media, just so they can have, like you said, have that simulation. You already have walkthroughs, so where everything break down to just basically like full speed walkthroughs almost. So it is something that clubs will have to think of, and they're probably thinking of that right now, and of like, how are we going to host these? Because you think about it, it's March, mini camp will start soon, depending on what happens with what's going on in our world today. Then right from mini camp, you go to OTAs, then right from OTAs, the veterans take a break, the rookies normally stay there to lift and run, and then training camp starts up again. So the handling of it definitely is going to be a major piece that I would like to see, and how like teams will handle it, and a lot of it depends on that coach. Do you have your more traditional coach that think you should just bang, bang, bang? That's the only way we're going to understand, or we're going to get just full speed. Or you have more of your younger coaches that want everything to be crisp, moving fast, but don't have that opportunity to have some type of contact at all. So it's going to be a major thing coming up soon.
I was curious, how does the locker room, how do the players differ? Like, do all players dislike practice and want less of it? Or is that like a more of a like you said, the veterans that have already made money that don't really need the practice time? Is it a small group that don't want as many practices, or is it the majority of the locker room?
I think they go by being taken care of. I know when I was with the Jets, one thing that, one of the things I say about Coach Hermel was that he took care of you. And if you were the veterans and then the namesake veterans. So when I was there, my rookie year, like the veteran linebackers was Mo Lewis, Marvin Jones, those type of guys. And they understood, Coach Edwards understood that these are the guys that we want ready for games. They already know they've been in the league for so long, so they already know the defense. We give them like 1-2 plays during practice, but at that, come on out, get the second string and third string ready just in case. So, you know what I mean? So guys like that, I think they would do kind of like what they do in basketball with the whole management thing they do with like LeBron and those guys. They know how to limit their starters and to make sure the backups get more reps, because you never know what's going to happen. And with it being a high contact sport, you got to have everybody ready. So I believe that the veterans are more so, you take care of me, I take care of you type of mind state. And I think it goes individually when it comes to the whole practice aspect. But I know it will be a huge change if you limit it even more, and you cutting off an hour of time. So that means you got higher prep time, but you got less time to put that preparation into play.
Now, what about, going off Glenn's question, you have locker rooms, at least the league that seems to be splitting where, like you said, you have those veteran players that are wanting to vote no, and you have the younger players that seem to be wanting to vote yes. Do you think that could actually have an impact inside of a locker room? Like it could create tension to the point where guys aren't really wanting to get along with each other or talk to each other. Do you think it really can go that deep, or do you think when they come in the locker room, they're like, you know what, we got to put this stuff aside and play football?
It can't go that deep if it's allowed, just like any other job, I believe. The only difference with this one is, so of course, we know the amount of money that's on the table, the level that the NFL, any professional sport, is placed above any other profession, and the mind state of the people in the locker room. You know, you can have that together mind state where, you know, they can sit there and like, look, this is our pros, our cons. What are y'all pros and cons? You have some that just like flat out like, oh, that's messed up. Y'all have y'all money. Why can't we get our money as well? You know, so at the end of the day, once the decision comes down, then it's going to go to the head coach and from management to the head coach, the head coach and the coaching staff to make sure they are all in that one accord to, if that goal is to make it to the Super Bowl. And of course, we know the head coach wants to, because if you check the league in the last couple of years, your job isn't guaranteed anymore. You know, you can be there for a year, 2 years, and boom, they get you out of there. And now you got a new coach coming in and got to change everything up. So it's no, I don't want to use the word loyalty, but you know, you have nothing etched in stone anymore. You know what I mean? Like you did in the past with, you know, the Bill Cowers, you know, those type of coaches. Now it's like you know, it's kind of like the Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately type thing. It's not, yeah, we're going to progress and then we're going to keep doing this. And you look at the Browns, how many coaches they had in the last 4 years, you know what I mean? And you just tell like this whole thing is, it just wherever the dominoes go, then that's what it is. But at the end of the day, the decision going to be made, and then it's going to be how the veterans going to take it compared to how the young guys going to take it, or not even the young guys, the guys at middle to lower tier are going to take it. Because like you said, the middle to lower tier, of course they want it. You know what I mean? Anytime I can bump up to $675,000 as a league minimum, I take that. You know what I mean? An extra game means extra money to playoff teams. You know, you think about a lot of the brackets this year, a couple of those teams would have been in it if they had it this past playoff season. So
yeah,
it could certainly make things more exciting. One other part of the CBA that's been talked about, and not just in the NFL, but I've heard it talk about a lot in the NBA as well, is the relaxing of punishments for marijuana, almost doing away with them. I heard Torrey Smith comment on this a little while back, and he said basically, I can still play, but I'm tired of Toradol shots. I'm tired of painkillers. I'm tired of these opiates.
Right.
So do you think that's something the players could expect to get and should get, is a relaxation on those penalties for weed and can get away from the opioids a little bit?
I think they should, based on how it's being administered. You know what I mean? And I understand, you know, Eugene Moreau came from UVA, and I started to follow him when he decided to retire, because the same thing you said of how my body feel, you know what I mean, at the end of not even just the end of a season, at the end of like 2 weeks in a row. You know, everybody's amped up the first 2 weeks, you know what I mean? But after that second week rolling to the third, now you're starting to get on that cruise control of, let me do what I need to do to make it through the season to make sure I'm ready for that Sunday. You know, same way with college players for Saturdays, you know. And I know me personally in college on Fridays when we stay in the hotel, I would take ibuprofen for like body pains from practices in the prior week, to the point now where if I don't have to, I don't take medicine, just for the simple fact I know how many ibuprofens or back then Vioxx that we take to just get ready for the game. I never got the shots, but I know teammates that have, you know, and, you know, because the way we're kind of like mentally trained is, you know, if you're a football player, you got to be the strong guy. You can't be weak. You can't sit out, you know, athlete in general. Or you go back to Yana breaking his leg or Kobe, you know, tearing his Achilles. You know what I mean? I can't look like I'm weak or anything in front of everybody, so let me walk out on my own, knowing you grimacing in pain. But I think if they handle it and administer what they're trying to use in not recreational, but in a medicinal way, it can help. But the thing is, the line going to be drawn is, how do you know someone is doing it just because this is what they so used to doing, and taking advantage of that? So how they going to handle that, or know if they're doing that based off of that, and that's the fine line. They can put it out there, but how's that going to be managed compared to, if you got a guy that's using marijuana for recreational use, and on Sundays, he still like plastic from Saturday or Friday or whenever, and he can barely make his moves, he can barely do his jobs. And that comes back on the coach of monitoring, athletic training staff to monitor. And then who wants to have that in their hands to be in charge of monitoring that,
Right. I wonder how many players that happens to right now, but with opioids.
Right.
I mean, to where like it's no longer medicinal, it's now a dependency, and they're crossing the line, and similar things are happening. So yeah, no, that's a really good point. Now, one of the things that we want to get your answer on is, and you kind of gave it away at the beginning, but I'd like to know what your thoughts are. So it sounds like if you take it back to your playing days, you would have been on the side of getting the extra game check, and then I didn't even think about the playoff check because more teams would be in the playoffs. So that's another great insight. But as far as being out of the league now and outside looking in, which way do you think this will end up going?
I think it's going to end up going with a yes. They got to trump it up so we can sit, so we can have our discussions we have, and so everybody can talk. I believe it's going to go to that way because at the end of the day, with the NFL not having guaranteed money like NBA, MLB, MLS, sports like that, they want to secure their future. You know what I mean? And I believe that it's going to go to a yes. Then they're going to come to the game management for the veterans, and I understood Aaron Rodgers' side because I think he got sidetracked. I mean, he got sidetrained because he said that previously we were talking about no extra game, no matter what. Then all of a sudden, then it's boom, it's up in the airs. So he wanted to know what happened and when did it happen that whole thing spun around to start thinking about that, because at first it was said that nobody wanted that extra game. But you guys know once numbers start throwing about, things can change anything. It's sad to say, but that's the sports life. You think about it, and players start to think about it like, these owners are making this much money off of TV deals. They're making this much money off of this. Why can't we get more? But again, it's still giving something. Well, if I give you this, you have to give us one more game. Because in their mind, owners are thinking, well, we get one more game, NBC, ESPN, all of those, that's going to trump it up. We won't get more money into the groups. We get more money as staff members to do more what we want to do. You know what I mean? So if you want more money and get this, then you got to give us this. Or we'll take games off the front end. But if you think about it, the veterans, I know when I was with the Jets, the veterans really didn't play until like the third or fourth preseason game anyway. And they only did that like we just talked about, to get timing down. So when game one start, that is not like a set off, like, well, if they play first and second preseason game, then they start to relax third and fourth, then you got to rev them back up to get ready for the first game. No, they would play like a quarter in the first game, a quarter and a half the second game. Third game, they play the whole entire first half. And then the fourth game, they probably would play like the first half in the middle of the third, almost the full third. And then you guys are done until we start getting ready for the first game. So again, it's tough because I just feel for the young guys that are free agents like I was, that come in, that's hoping to play those preseason games to get the looks, to get the film, so they can, if they don't make that team, they can present it to another team. Now you got 2 games to be able to present something. You can't present practice film because they don't let that go like that, because you don't know who you playing. Your opponent could be seeing your practice film. So it's tough. Like you guys said, you basically gonna have to come in ready to go automatic. Like we really focus in on offensive plays, defensive plays, special teams, and getting in going 100% every time, because they got 2 less games to prove themselves.
Yeah, we made an increase in those joint practices that we've been seeing the last few seasons, which would give an opportunity for other coaches to, of course, scout at least one more team, the one they're practicing against. But But yeah, with less practices, that's less time. But so you're saying we don't have to worry. You don't think there'll be any work stoppages?
I hope not. I think everybody's just following suit right now with what they're seeing. And I'm hoping, with the NFL, they don't go into like a strike. They're going to work something out some way. It's going to happen. I think it's too much money on the table when you have too many of the middle to lower tier guys coming into the league where you have that backing of the veterans are starting to get towards the end of their careers. So it's going to fall on the younger, to me, the middle to lower guys of this being effective. And it's a long-term deal for a while, so they're going to have to like it and love it for, I would have like 10, 11 years down the road that this is going to be in the play. So at the end of the day, some people are going to be happy, and we all know you can't please everybody. So someone's going to have to take the blow in the chin for the players. You know what I mean?
Right.
The way it's looking, it's going to be the higher tier guys, but are they really taking a blow in the chin? You know what I mean? You guys been collecting, and that's just football money. We're not even talking about endorsement money. That's just this football money that you guys are getting guaranteed.
I tell you what, I'm no arbitrator, but if it were up to me, I would not focus on the overall dollar, but the guaranteed dollars. If I were a player, I'd say I want my guarantees up, not necessarily just the amount. But we are excited to see what happens. The drama is fun, and trying to use that as an extraction to not think about the coronavirus so much.
Hopefully there won't be a work stoppage for that.
Right.
Can you imagine NFL being played in an empty stadium? Like the NBA is one thing, but football, that would just be weird.
So we hear everything they'd say on the field. I don't know how they would mic it.
The whistles are super echo. You can hear them for miles because the echo is sitting in that valley. But I hope it doesn't. I hope they do find a way to come together with the CBA, with football. To me, and it's just my opinion, moving from the football aspect to being more of a football attainment instead of just football. I don't see how they would stop, because the way it is pegged now to being of an entertainment type sport, football shuts down, everything's going to go kaput.
Right. Think about bars and all these places, sponsorships, and everything like that. There's a lot riding on it.
Right.
So, hey, Tavon, we really appreciate the insight. It's really awesome to hear from a former player, to get a look into the locker room, what it's going to be like. Thanks again for taking the time. We know you're really busy. Why don't you give our viewers an opportunity to know where they can find you and what you're working on?
First, thank you guys for reaching out to me. I appreciate it. Anytime, like I told you guys from the first show, anytime you need me to come on or just getting the opportunity to talk sports is great with me. And I love it, talking with you guys, that y'all have insight as well, So you can reach me, of course, on Twitter. It's tmason18. My foundation, TavonMasonLoveTheKids.org, and find me on all social media platforms, Mr._T Mason on Instagram, and Tavon Mason Love the Kids. My Twitter foundation is TMLTKF. And right now we're in the process of doing our annual character slipper drive. So for 2020, we already visited 2 children's hospitals. Last Saturday, I visited Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital, took slippers there. Depending on how everything goes with the coronavirus, we're supposed to visit the newly built Ronald McDonald House in April. Another thing is pretty cool. I got the chance to interview today for the head coach position at my high school, Woodlawn High School, former high school. So
wow,
fingers crossed. Hopefully.
Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. So definitely keep you guys in the loop. Possibly even come out to a game to air from the game, to do a play.
That's right. That'd be awesome.
That'd be real cool. So that's what we're doing now. And if anybody wants to see what we have going on, go to TavonMasonLoveTheKids.org, or what we're doing in the community, and follow me on Mr._T Mason as well.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. Thanks again, man.
No problem. Y'all have a good one.
Take it easy.
You too. Talk to you soon.